I'm just realizing you're very clean shaven today.
This is like, I think the first time in 6 months.
Yeah. Really? 6 months? Clean shaven. I'm never clean shaven.
I trim, but I very seldom use the razor.
Right.
I pulled out the old razor and put it to work, and it was not good. Like I have lost my razor dexterity.
Dexterity. You lost 2 points in the dexterity score.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. It was like,
Yeah, so you just go in there. And oh no! You just like start fumbling
keep
everywhere.
dropping it. The shaving cream gets all over the place. Like it's all over my nipples.
Some people they don't drop the soap. It's like, oh, don't drop the razor. Well, that one might hurt a little bit.
The razor would hurt more, and don't try to catch the razor when you do drop it. Good tip.
Did you do that one?
Nope. No,
okay,
I didn't.
But that is a good tip.
Yeah.
And hopefully none of this applies if you have a straight razor. Because
just
don't catch it at all.
No,
if you drop the
and move your foot out of the way.
Yes. So, good morning. Happy Monday. Today is January 24th, 2022. Welcome to What the Hell is Water, everybody. Did you have a good weekend?
Had a pretty good weekend. Yeah.
Did you manage to do any of that, relaxing type of thing, or mostly just running around in circles with your fire on head? That's not even what a sentence, but with your head on fire. Going,
yeah. No, it was the beard that was on fire. That's why I'm shaving today. No, it was actually a good weekend, man. It was pretty. We were supposed to go out Saturday with some friends, but due to like Omicron and flare-ups and everything else, we just stayed home, and then. Ended up working on some stuff in the shop. Felt pretty good about that. Like it was actually pretty nice. When I did go out, it was to run errands to buy tools. So that was my favorite kind of errand.
Yeah, that's the kind of errand you insert every time you need errands.
Yeah,
oh, I'm out for something else. I think I should probably go get some tools.
I should probably get a tool, maybe a new blade for this, or yeah.
Nice. Well, that's good. What kind of tools you got?
Oh, this was some blades for steel cutting. So I got some steel cutting blades, and then they have this thing that I just found out about, and it's when you're doing metal studs for walls, which are non-load bearing, but they're usually required if you're in a building that could possibly burn down or whatever, right? So, but you have a thing, instead of putting screws in, you can use a crimper.
Okay.
And so it punches a hole and sort of wraps around the back end to join the two pieces together, the base to the stud. And so I was just like, you mean you can do this without screws? I have to buy one of these. So, of course, I went looking for one and couldn't find one. So I just ordered it on Amazon. So we'll see if it shows up.
Well, that is one nice thing, in general. I mean, who doesn't like the convenience of Amazon and all of the amazing things Amazon allows you to do, right?
Yeah,
but it is nice every now and then to try and support a local brick and mortar, which sometimes is a small business, sometimes a big box store like, Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. Yeah. But that is something that's been really nice about Amazon, is all of those things that are just obscure enough to not be on the shelf in your big box store or your local Ace Hardware store or whatever. Yeah. You can find them still, which is nice.
Yeah, and I wonder, those stores are they're just like, we only sell one of these every 3 years. We don't need to keep it in stock. When I, of course, was at the local Ace True Value, and, I was asking them about it, and they're like, no, there is no way.
Right.
Like, try Lowe's, try Home Depot. And neither Lowe's or Home Depot had one either. And I was just like, oh, well, okay. Like,
yeah.
I'm now left with this other option. And so it's just like, it's fine, but, yeah, it reminds me though of the old days where I wouldn't even know this. I would have just kept using screws because, of course, the internet, which allowed me to go through Amazon, is also the thing that gave me access to YouTube, so I could learn this. So I was like, and of course I learned it like by watching Australian people do it.
Oh, good on you.
Oh, yeah. So the accent was, I was like, what are they doing? And they just totally skipped over it. There was just like one shot. It was like one frame, and you see a guy just go clink, and you go,
right? And you're like, I'm glad I was paying attention because I might have missed it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about some of these like home repair, DIY, all those kind of videos is like, some of people have the best of intentions, but the worst of camera angles.
Oh, man. Yeah, no kidding.
Especially when it comes to the car stuff. It's like, yeah, here's me holding my phone down. You can kind of maybe see it.
Yeah, right. And I love it when they're just either finding like, I got to put the phone down, and you just get like 10 seconds of it laying on their dashboard or something, and you're like, thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can't talk about this without plugging our only DIY thing we've done with Helpful for Life so far, which was how to hang a curtain rod. So we did a video on that, and it was very exhausting. No, what's the word? Complete. Very
exhaustive works.
Exhaustive. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Yes, yeah. And I'm joking, but the big thing we did was it's not just saying steps 1, 2, 3, 4, but we say, okay, well, step 1 is this, and here are all the problems that could happen, or here's all the other information that they're assuming you know, and here's all the extra background info. So it's some of the most complete DIY instructions I had seen, and I've seen a lot having lived in an RV. You have to troubleshoot all sorts of things.
Yeah, we really got into it, and it's also interesting when you're doing this stuff how much junk is jammed into your head that you don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like with a lot of things, like as you go through your life, then you just accumulate things, and then you just take them for common knowledge, and they're really not.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that's another example of that was a couple weeks ago, we did a special What the Hell is Water episode with Libby Corno, and we did some cooking stuff. And that episode ended up going on for a very long time because of that exact reason. We're like, oh, well, we're going to tell you about this tip and this tip and this tip. And, we're still tabulating, but I think we got over 100 tips in the video. And we're like, yeah, well, and each one of those is like a small thing that you learn along the way. So that's what we're all about here at Helpful for Life, is giving you guys all those extra learnings in between. But that's enough of a good morning. I've heard enough from you for one day for about this couple minute segment. I'll come back to you shortly.
Let me talk more about metal crimpers.
Yes. But let's do a quick recap of what happened on Friday, and then we'll move on. On Friday, we talked with Eric Wooten. We had him on another time, which was great as always. He's one of our relationship experts. He's a marriage counselor, been that way for decades. We talked a lot about him and his buddy Steve in his garage late at night on a weekday. For those of you are like, what does that mean? You'll have to watch the episode to find out. And we also talked about the other Eric. We had the Eric versus Eric off, since Thursday was Eric with the K and Friday was Eric with the C. So a lot of drama on Friday.
Yeah. Like, you got the wrong Eric. Yeah, that was the.
There was also talk of jackets.
Oh yeah. Jackets, aliens. Because I got to wear my lovely Roswell shirt.
Right.
It was so funny. After the show, my mom actually texted me and was like, shout out for Roswell.
Oh, that's great. Hi, good to see you again. So the actual content, the real meat of that episode, though, was about setting boundaries. What do you remember about setting boundaries from that conversation?
You should have some.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used up that fence analogy quite a bit, just about borders, but also I think he talked about it being, this is your responsibility and this is my responsibility, right? And this idea of kind of tending to your own responsibilities.
Yeah, and one of the things that I don't remember if we mentioned on Friday or not, but even when you have fences or property lines or whatever you want to maintain, is like, hey, you can help out your neighbor on their side and you can help them maintain that boundary, but it's still their responsibility, right? It's like, hey, this is your responsibility to figure this out. I'm here to help you, and I'm here to, and recognize that, hey, this fence is going to need some mending. It's probably going to be broken over some times. Yeah. And that was one of the main points we've had for people at home was, hey, one of the first things to know about boundaries is to one, start small and start early, right? Mm-hmm. A big problem that happens a lot of times is people let things build up for a very long time, and then they're like, oh, now we need boundaries. And it's like, yeah, you're 30 years into a marriage, and you're now going to try and set your first boundary ever, and you've had all of these issues, and you're at the brink of divorce. So it's like...
And it's weird, because at that point, you haven't practiced setting boundaries, so you're probably going to be horrible at it, right? So I think that's part of it is... I really like to start small idea. Like, sometimes if you're having, like we were talking about, like with your parents, if you're having like trouble with them, then maybe you have a boundary that they don't even know about. Like if you're afraid of the confrontation with your parents about having that conversation, maybe you have a boundary where you're just like, I'm not going to pick up the phone at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night. Like, whatever that boundary might be. You're just like, I will leave that alone. And then later you might actually earn or build up the courage to have the actual conversation.
Yeah, and what you're referencing, for those who want to know a little bit more about that specific method, besides listening on Friday, you can also check out Eric's video on that, which was talking about the 3 levels of boundaries. We'll include that in the chat as well. And that's when I say his videos, I mean Eric Wooten. His company is called Altered Marriage, ALTARED Marriage, MARRIAGE.com, and you can check out his website, and his YouTube channel is called Relation Shots. Instead of relationships, relation shot. Like, this is your shot to have this relationship. And so on that channel will be that 3 levels of boundaries. And what it allows you to do is, hey, especially if I'm someone who's kind of avoiding confrontation, or I don't want to make waves, or, I know they're not going to respond well to this. Well, here are some ways for you to initially set some boundaries to make a change, and then you can ramp it up as needed. So so starting early, doing it often. I also want to make sure to point out, I'm not trying to rag on people who have had these 30-year-long marriage who have not done this before. Well, that's probably because you had no idea that you needed to do this. And so just now today, maybe it's a little bit harder for you if you've got 3 decades of patterns and habits and routines to undo, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. So you can still start today, and you can still start small, right? It can be something like, hey, when you come home or when we're eating dinner, I want you to put your phone away, or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be some big thing, right? It can be like, hey, I'd really like, before you get into bed, if you took your clothes off, it's like your work boots,
your shoes.
Yeah,
right. And quit eating crackers.
Yeah.
It's there's a whole lot of little things that might be reasonable, and a lot of it, we talked about tone previously on the show last week, I think, and the idea would just be there to just like, when you approach these conversations, check your tone.
Yeah.
Make sure you have like best intentions in mind, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And another thing we did in that episode was, at the beginning, we gave a recap of all of the previous episodes that we've had with Eric. And so you guys are like, hey, they're talking about relationship stuff. And, oh, by the way, this isn't just romantic relationship. This also has to do with people at work, people in your family, people that are your friends, maybe your dog, your baby, I don't know, your Tamagotchi, whoever you have this relationship with.
your television, whatever it is.
Yeah, but it's good to catch up on what we've talked about so far with Eric. So we did a recap on that in the last episode. You can go listen or watch that. And there's also a playlist there that has all of his previous appearances, so you can get caught up, because I think that's one of my favorite conversations we've been having on this show. And I also think it's very important because, we talk a lot about yourself and making sure you take care of you. Well, having boundaries and having solid relationships, that's the next extension of yourself. So, hey, look at yourself, take that personal responsibility, which is something we've talked about with Eric, and then try and make others better too, and try and make those relationships you have, because guess what? If you're improving each one of those relationships, your life's going to be better. Your life's going to be easier. You're going to be happier. Like, there's really not many downsides to trying to improve your relationship besides the friction that you're going to encounter, which, recognize that with some people especially, you're going to encounter some friction.
Yeah, that's fine. It's part of it.
So with that, let's roll to our intro. Helpful for life. And welcome back to What the Hell is Water? I'm Reed Garcia, founder of Helpful for Life.
This is Ryder Richards.
And it's actually, some people have, some words have like a silent letter or something like that. Ryder actually has a silent pause built into the middle of his name.
Yeah, Ryder.
And how is that
Richards.
Written in the... Do you have like musical rests in your name?
I go down, there's 4 bars, and then hit it. Yeah.
Today, let it be known, I have now added a repeat bar to my name. And so you have to say it 4 times. This is Reed Garcia, Reed Garcia, Reed Garcia, Reed Garcia.
I like it, but that's a tongue twister.
Yeah, you're right. I should probably add a crescendo as well. So it's like...
Reed Garcia.
Yes, I like that. Well, today is a different kind of episode, a special kind of episode, and it's what we'd call meta, a little bit meta, which is what does meta mean? Not meta, please. No, definitely not. Although we're on Facebook right now streaming, so thank you for letting us use all of your stuff for free. But we hate you. I mean,
but not really. And it's a love-hate.
Yeah. Mostly love.
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
because this episode is going to be about marketing, right? So
yes.
We're going to go meta on marketing.
Yeah. So what does the word meta mean for those who haven't heard it before?
As far as I understand, it's kind of like over or above or beyond, something like that.
Yeah, the way I kind of think about it is you kind of like step outside of the thing that you're in and kind of look back down on it, right? I kind of think of like a video game where it's like, hey, you're in this battle and you're on the field and you're you're the dude with the big sword, like, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I need to get a little meta real quick, and you press a button, you like zoom out, and then you like see like the whole battlefield, you see the dude, and you're like, why are his pants off? And you're like, oh, that's right, that's how Ryder likes to design his people.
What kind
no
of video
pants.
games are you playing?
Yeah. And then you see like, so anyway, so meta is stepping outside of the thing that you are within, and then maybe describing it, right? So that's what we're doing here. We're like, hey, we're in the middle of a show right now. We're talking to you about the show. We're also breaking the fourth wall, right? We're saying, hey, we recognize there's an audience out there, which is another thing in showbiz. Like sometimes you never do, right?
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot of levels to this, and what's really fun about it is like you start getting into movies like Inception, right, where there's like layers within layers, and there's all sorts of conspiracies on each layer, and like getting involved and then breaking back out of it again. And yeah, we're just gonna kind of like float up above for a little bit, maybe talk about the show, talk about, I don't know, how this kind of stuff works. A lot of times people are interested in how some sort of video show or podcast or whatever, what happens behind the scenes.
Right. And by no means is that going to be the main point of this show, What the Hell is Water? But every now and then we're going to give you guys some updates, some peeks behind the curtains, and also engage with some conversation with you guys, because we're going to be doing some things. We're going to be talking about what we're doing, but we by no means think what we're doing is the best and the most amazing, perfect thing. So if you guys have ideas, or if you want to just point out some things or ask questions, feel free to engage in the chat on whatever platform you're on, or you can go to our website, helpfulforlife.com, and hit the Contact Us button in the top right. So while you're talking, I just had to mention a couple words, simulacrum and parfait, for those who want to hear those words.
Layers. Meta and layers at the same time.
Yes. But so we're getting a little bit meta, but we're talking about marketing today. We're talking about, we titled the episode, How to Become an Overnight Success, and how Helpful for Life is trying to do that right now. And I guess the first question for you, Ryder, is what do you think when you hear the word overnight success? And has that always meant the same thing to you, or was there a time where you learned about it and that kind of shifted?
Yeah, there was a time when I thought an overnight success was like you just struck it lucky. You somehow you remember he's like, for a while there was a political guy, it's like Joe the plumber or whatever, and he was supposed to be like every man, and it just like he ended up having this moment, and then he had his moment of fame, and then all of a sudden like he captured it and he ran with it for a while and did well. And so I was like, overnight success, cool. And then now that I've been sort of watching podcasts and listening to things about business a little bit more and about success and about marketing, one of the things they talk about is that to become an overnight success, guys like James Clear say this, it takes between 5 to 8 years. And you just go, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, you have to put in the groundwork. It's just that no one recognizes or sees you for 5 to 8 years before all of a sudden everyone declares you to be an overnight success, but you had to put in all the hard work up front.
Yeah, and that's I'm so glad you said that, because guess what? Helpful for Life was founded in 2017. So tick 2022. This will be the 5th year we've been around. So in the summer we'll make around 5 years. And admittedly, I was not 100% working on that full time. There was a stint where I was in an RV. Living full-time for a year, and started out that journey where it was like, hey, I am going to work. And then I was like, no, actually, I think it's better for me to take this as a bit of a sabbatical. But however, there's a thing about having your business be life about that makes it a little interesting. And talk about getting meta. That was one of the cool things about when I decided to make this jump and decided to start to teach people like, hey, how do we life better? Well, who better to have the time, space, ability, and financial support than an upper middle class white dude to have the time to not have to go to the job every day, to be like, hey, all right, how can I figure out how to do this thing more efficiently? How can I help these people who are my friends and family going through these life things? But maybe I can take the time to go help this person move across the country because I don't have to ask for time off. Maybe I can help, somebody find a job or work on a resume because I don't have, these other everyday type of things. So that was one of the benefits of me having that time and space, was being able to figure those things out. And along the same lines, I'm a solo entrepreneur trying to figure out how to run a business, how to create a thing, how do we focus on the right things, and not just that, but we created a business where it's like the topic is life, and it's this whole broad thing which goes against like pretty much every business advice is focus, niche down.
Find your niche.
You're right.
Yeah,
and so through all of this, I've had so many challenges, and I've learned so much about productivity, all of the ways that you can try to do things and fail. And also my wife Danielle has kind of been along on the journey as well. She works and tries to figure out how to write and how to both create something, and then the separate part, which is where you have to market something and sell something. And so I guess that's a long-winded way of saying, we're failing here and figuring out all of the ways things can't work, so it can be better for people in the future. And some of those people in the future are people who work for Helpful for Life as we learn and grow, but also some of that's people at home. Like, we want to tell you, like, hey, we've talked about time blocking. Well, guess what? We can tell you a lot of the ways that you're going to run into trouble as you try and implement time blocking, because we've run into those troubles ourselves. Yeah. So that's part of, I guess, like I'm saying, we just want some of the benefit of being a little bit meta, talking about some of these things, and also having that time to get things developed, is that we learn more to teach other people. So we're talking about marketing and the separation of creating a thing and then marketing and selling the thing. So when it comes to that split, I mean, I imagine as an artist, like, that's kind of, it doesn't get much more black and white than that. There's literally, you need to create a thing, and then you need to market and sell the thing. So do you have some thoughts or experience in this world?
A little bit. Yeah. What's interesting about this is most people love having the idea, right? And then having the muse tap you on the shoulder. A lot of people love that, and then they never get around to the creation. The interesting thing about being an artist is, of course, the creating is the drug, right? It's the sitting down, making the thing, drawing, painting, whatever. You just get super high off of it, and it's great. And then you get done, and you're just like, hey, world, look. And the world is like, oh, that's nice. And then they just move on.
Yep.
And you're like, but I put a bunch of energy into this, and you're supposed to care because it's art. And people are just like, no.
Yeah, which sorry to interrupt, which leads me to one pro tip for marketing, which is to remember who you are selling to, because and this is what's called focusing on the benefits, not the features. Because one way that a lot of people like to sell things is to say, say for example with Kickstart Your Kitchen, what's that? We're going to shamelessly use one of our own products as we're talking about marketing?
Weird.
Wow. Yeah. But yeah, with Kickstart Your Kitchen, I could sit here and tell you, wow, here's all of the months, if not, it's actually probably a year and a half that we spent developing the course itself. Oh, it has over 13 hours of content, has over 190 videos, which we've conveniently chopped up into digestible chunks of around 3 to 5 minutes a piece. I could tell you all of that type of stuff, but the reality is you're like, I don't care about that. Let's use another example. I'm going to buy a computer, and I'm an average person. Hey, this thing's got 3.4 teraflops and 62 Gemini and 62 of those things. You want one of those?
It sounds great. I don't know what any of that means, but that in itself is enticing.
Yes, and in case you're wondering, I'm an electrical engineer, and all those terms were totally real.
Yes, the veracity of this show just keeps going up.
Yes, exactly. But no, you as an average person, you care like, hey, I want a video chat with my grandparents. I want to maybe play some video games with dudes that don't wear pants. And I want to be able to watch YouTube shows all day.
That's high on my list when I go into Best Buy. Yeah, yes. But will the guys I'm playing with not be wearing pants? So that's the computer I want.
Yeah, so there's pro tip number 1 for you, which is to focus on the benefits, not the features. So when you're telling somebody about your product, I'm going to say, hey, writer, when I'm going to teach you how to cook. You're going to now learn how to actually create food besides that sandwich, which is the only thing that you ever say that you make. So we're going to broaden your horizons, and you're going to learn that, hey, there's this whole world of food, and I can engage with it in this whole other way. Yeah, a different grain. Yeah. It's still dry. Yeah. But yeah, you're focusing on the benefits instead of the features. So whenever you flip over that thing, it's like, I don't care as much that it's 3.4 gigabits. I want to know, is it going to let me do the things that I want to do? Mm-hmm. So we're talking about the separation of creating the thing and doing the thing. And one of the things that you talked about was what I like to call the go in a cave method, which is what I did with Kickstart Your Kitchen, which is, hey, I'm going to go build this thing, and I'm going to go hide in a cave like Gollum for a while, and then I'm going to come out and say, hey, don't you want this thing? But that's not the best way to do things. So give us a couple of words on that. In the art world, like, do you announce that you're going to do something, or how do you?
I think the art world, a lot of it, at least the visual art world, as far as object creation, is almost entirely going into the cave. And I think that's why it attracts certain people to it, is those people love being in the cave. And then they get to show up at the end and say, hopefully you get a gallery show or something lined up and you show up with these works and you put them in the gallery, and then the world can marvel at what you did while you were in the cave. So there's a cycle there. What ends up happening a lot of times now is that we've gotten into where in Instagram, people are showing their process while they're making, so that you can actually tease people into being excited about it. And this would be like the same concept as advertisements for a play or a blockbuster movie, or giving people a snippet or a trailer. We're now in a time where you actually try to tease people into wanting the thing. So you sort of tantalize them to get their desire ramped up before the main show. And so we're just functioning in a different time period now. But it used to be, I think, fairly normal for people to go into the cave and come out with the masterpiece, and then word would travel about the masterpiece. Like paintings, for instance, used to be unveiled as if it was theater. You'd pull aside the curtain and people would pay to come in and see it. And and you would view it, and they had all these kind of things, and they'd even take paintings around on carts around the city square and show them off to people. So there was all these things that happened with, you created a masterpiece, the masterpiece was shown off, that enhanced your reputation, and then you could get commissions based off of the reputation. But it might take you 3 years to make a masterpiece.
Yeah, and now I just can't stop thinking about how now I really want to do that. I want to go to some city square and have some big cloth over or something, and then just leave it there for at least the better part of a day, and then maybe put some velvet rope around it or something, and then at some point do that whole whooshah.
And it's like nothing.
Yeah, it's like a mirror.
It's right, and everyone just instantly starts taking selfies.
Yeah, no, actually, here's a fun. So I just quick aside. Watch this video on retro reflectors by Technology Connections. So we might share that one in the chat. Retro reflectors by Technology Connections on YouTube. And a retro reflector is basically a series of mirrors or reflectors that points the thing straight back at you. And the main, most popular use of this is in what is called affectionately the city titty. Have you ever heard of a city titty?
No.
No, the city titty is the nickname for all of the reflectors you see in the streets. So as you're driving down the street and you see the reflectors, they're kind of like little titties for the city. So city titties.
So many.
Yeah. But anyways, what happens is the light from your headlight goes into those reflectors, and then it's actually reflected right back at you in a very narrow beam. And what that allows you to do is you can have these reflectors, you can have these road signs that even though there are no street lights, you can see them from very far away, because the way these are designed is basically a little cube of mirrors that just sends that light straight back at you. And it's actually really cool. In the video, he shows just the little flashlight from his phone. He turns it on and it's like, boom, you can see the street lights or street signs from really far away. And it's like, that's pretty cool. But as soon as you move that light to the side, you can't see the reflection quite as well. Yeah. So anyways, the reason I brought up the retro reflectors was because I thought that would be an interesting little art piece. You pull it off and it's like, wherever you stand, it's always you.
Well, and if we're going to talk retro reflective and art, my wife has actually made some art using retro reflective materials, because it's also fantastic for shielding yourself from paparazzi or even security cameras at different points, because the lighting, even the infrared, can be reflected right back into the camera, and that shorts it out through the contrast.
Oh, yeah, overloads the sensor. Huh?
Yeah, and so there's some interesting ways to combat surveillance state with retroreflective.
Nice. There's a website or something that they could learn more about that.
Oh, suanrishi.com. You can see some of her artwork there, and SUEANNERISCHE.com.
All right, it's gonna be real awkward if you messed up the spelling of your wife's name.
I was just thinking that as I was rattling it off. I was like, "Oh boy."
Yeah. We'll get that link in the chat as well. But so quick aside tangent there on retro reflectors, because I thought it was interesting and somewhat relevant. But also it's kind of related to how you were talking about, the go in the cave method, the come out, the reveal, that used to be a thing. But now you're alluding to, especially with the advent of social media, it's a little bit different. And also the way people the thing people expect from a company have now changed. It used to be like, hey, I need this product from you, right? But now people have gotten much more, I don't know what the word is, but they expect so much more. It's like, hey, you can't just sell me a thing, but you need to sell me the thing. You need to care about the environment. You need to care about all people. You need to, if you're going to hate gays, at least open on Sunday. You know, you got to have all these things that you got to do.
Yeah, never mind. Let's skip over that one.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, so you expect all of these things from the company more than just, hey, give me the product. It used to be like, hey, I get this thing. I don't care about the rest, right? But when you're on social media and you're building the thing and you're showing people along the way, you're also kind of letting people learn a little bit more about you, learn a little bit more about the process. And one, yes, that adds value to the thing because they can see and know a little bit more of the work that went into it. But also maybe some of that's about letting the people connect with you, because that's a big thing right now, especially in online marketing and especially in things like Helpful for Life, where we are creators on the internet. It's about helping you guys relate with us, recognize, hey, we are people. We're not just things. And so I think there was a John Henry quote, something about that too, about...
people don't buy what you sell.
Yeah.
They buy who you are. They buy why you sell it.
Right. So it's not just, again, about the thing. It's not just the widget you've brought out of the cave. And a widget is kind of a generic term for like, hey, I'm going to create something. I'm going to sell something. It's just like, oh, we're making widgets.
There's a really, I keep saying that.
Yeah, classic writer.
There's a breakdown there that's, I think is pretty fascinating. The idea that we have separated out biography from the object, right? Or we've conflated the two. Used to, you could make the object and you would buy it for its utility or value, but now we have so many options that we also want biography, or we want some sort of connection with the object. So we're sort of buying an experience along the way. Like the object you make says something about you, so it becomes part of your identity, and the choices that you have are the choices you make, right? So buying an electric car is saying something. It's signaling your values. So now any purchase you make, there's so many options out there that we also signal our values through our purchasing. And what's fascinating about it is we've gotten further and further away from, does a car get you from A to B? We're now much more concerned about, well, what does the car say about me as a person driving the car? And so when it comes into these ideas of like products and product creation, maybe the product now might even be secondary to the marketing. Oftentimes the marketing is, it's what Richard Sinnett calls gold plating, where we enhance the value for very small differences and they get an outsized monetary kind of transactional thing. So when you gold plate something, it doesn't actually make the watch work any better. It just shines more. And so people think it's fancier, and they will pay not just the price of the gold plating, but they'll pay twice the price for the thing. And you just go, well, that doesn't make sense. It still does the same function. And so when we sort of have moved away from utility into this sort of marketing thing, so it's just something to sort of bring up, that if people are no longer buying the things for the object use itself, or maybe that's part of it, but maybe it's a small part, and then what they're doing with the rest of it is figuring out why they're buying you as an individual, or why they're buying you as a company. Well, then that's where the marketing comes in, right? Is selling yourself, selling the story, understanding why they're buying you.
Yeah, and that's, one thing. I mean, I'm going to fall for the most common trap when talking about marketing, but it's because it's relatable, which is talking about Apple. I guess something about being one of the most profitable companies in the history of the world will have that effect on things. It's like, regardless of whether or not you like what they're doing, like, hey, they're selling lots of widgets.
Yes.
But, as you're talking about things that don't necessarily add value, quote unquote value, meaning, I guess, pragmatic, practical usage of things. It's like, hey, it's not increasing the function, but it has other effects. And one of those things that's related to that is status. And that's a thing about the iPhone, which a lot of us Americans may not be aware of, but the iPhone is a status symbol, especially in other countries. So China, I know it was a very big thing a few years back when the iPhone started to get into China. And then also, more importantly, when the new iPhone gets released, realistically speaking, it's 2022. Technology's progressed so well to the point where you could buy a cheap phone from the grocery store if you wanted to, and it's going to do 90% of what you need it to do. So every year getting the new phone is not really functionally like going to make a huge improvement. Like sure, like maybe you'll get a much better camera, maybe your thing will go faster, maybe it can do more things,
but
bigger
these are
screen.
all tiny differences.
Right, but they're all tiny. And so however, like in China especially, when they released the rose gold iPhone, it's like, well, now you can only have that rose gold if you've upgraded to this newest one. So as you're just walking down the street and you got your phone, you're like, oh, hey, oh. And it's like, wow, look at Susie. She's got the gold. And they all know. And it's like, oh, now instead of just having the one eye that's surveilling and looking at people, mine has 3, and it kind of looks like an alien from Roswell.
Yes.
So the status is a part of it as well.
It's an alien, the 3 eyeballs. Yeah.
So we're talking about marketing today, and we're talking about becoming an overnight success. So we briefly talked about how the first thing about becoming an overnight success is that, yes, sure, there are some times where people will, I don't know, strike it lucky or do one thing, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're successful. But realistically, the people that happens to, trying to have that be a sustainable success, a good analogy I like to think of is the lottery. It's like, all right, who do you think is going to manage money better? Someone who hits the lottery and gets millions and millions of dollars overnight, or someone who's been grinding and growing from zero, and then they finally have something that's been millions of dollars a year or whatever? Like, I'm going to trust my money with the guy who did it, the long way, because they've seen some things, they've failed, they've worked on that kind of thing as well. So we talked a little bit about how it's going to take a long time, potentially, for you to become overnight. But one thing that actually, let me continue with the recap there. We talked a little bit about the meta aspect. We talked a little bit about how it's not just buying the widget anymore. You're buying the company and the person and the people behind it. And one phrase we haven't said yet, but I got to say, of course, is separating the art from the artist, whether or not that's something you can do. And I don't know if we'll dive into that today because that's a topic in and of itself. So we'll link that whenever that happens. But then we talked a little bit too about social media, and we just started to talk about that process. But now I want to talk kind of combining that social media and the marketing aspect with the 5 years before the work, right? And so one of the ways I like to think about it is it's kind of like a pipe where you've got this pipe where the water's flowing, and then all of a sudden, like kind of some trash starts to trickle down the pipe, and it starts to get clogged, right? And then it starts to build up this pressure behind the pipe. And I don't know why this is the analogy that popped in my head,
that's what
but
I was wondering
too. This is why I'm not good at marketing.
Yeah, whenever I think of like how am I going to entice somebody, I usually start talking about sewage.
Exactly. Yeah. So you got a little turd floating by, you got some old McDonald's bags, there's all floating, creating this big trash ball, building up the pressure behind. And then at some point that trash ball is going to just have to explode, and then you're going to have that sweet release where all that pressure comes out. And then you flood the world with trash.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect analogy. What?
So that's where we're at with Helpful for Life. Our pressure is built up. We've got the trash and the sewage ready to go, spewing all over the world.
Yes. Soon the whole world can smell our stench.
Yes.
It will be great.
Yes. So that's how marketing works, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man.
Yeah. There's some sort of thing here too, where social media at one point, of course, wasn't a marketing thing. Then they kind of found their footing in their model with the advertising, and then now it's more about a lot of it is attention grabbing and data extraction, or ways that they actually make their money. But one of the things now is, I remember I was having this conversation with somebody, and they were just like, I'm working at this company, and they're like, I don't want to be a part of a company that does not have a social media platform. And
you said that, or someone said
somebody
that?
said that, and it was just kind of an interesting thing to just sort of be like, oh, like this is now like to be a major company and not have a social media presence is some sort of faux pas, right? It is like, it's how we even figure out that a company exists. Mm-hmm. And I found it to be interesting that this company was doing just fine, but they wanted social media because they found it to be a necessity to being seen as a successful grown-up company. Where I think previously a lot of people use social media as a way to become a successful grown-up company. So I'm seeing them work both directions now. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah,
because
yeah. So say the two directions one more time for me.
One of them is to have a company that's already successful,
okay,
but needing to have social media because you want to be seen
right.
as a certain kind of company, the kind of company.
And then the other one is where it's like, hey, we're trying to become that kind of company,
yeah.
and so we're going to start with the social media to help us accomplish that thing. No, that's an interesting point. And I was just talking with a friend of mine who does a lot of TikTok stuff, and we were talking about just yesterday. He's like, hey, you know, he's trying to be a TikTok creator, and one of the ways he's trying to do that is by helping companies do TikToks for them. Because what he does, he says, hey, you can see these guys who are like, hey, you could benefit a lot from being in this space, but right now you're missing the mark. One, they either don't have TikTok, or you come in and you're making this highly produced stuff that it just doesn't fit on the platform. It's like, hey, like, yeah, that's good content, but it immediately looks like an ad. And so people just immediately just swipe because they know, like, hey, you're not one of us. They just keep going, and then they just go blow right by. But he's like, hey, let me help you. And that's another thing that's interesting about the social media thing, which, you know, I like in the sense that it helps me as a company, like, get my name out there and help me tell people about it. But I'm not the biggest fan of, which is this whole mixture of like, hey, I'm browsing my personal feed, but yet then there's companies who are basically trying to blend in with my friends, but those are advertisements and those are paid. So that mixture kind of makes me feel a little weird. Does that ever like rub you the wrong way?
Yeah, it does. It's the trade-off. You know, early on when the internet was first born,
right,
then they hadn't figured out how to do all this stuff yet. And now that they've figured out how to sneak advertising into everything, and then the advertising tries to look like it's some sort of amateur while it's professional, like, that's super deceitful.
So many layers, too,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, real quick, I wanted to show the non pent up trash method, and for those who are like, wow, on audio only, we're showing a screen share here of the iPad, and we were talking, for those who are curious, since we have our entire history of times we've drawn, the previous time, this was talking a little bit about how Danielle was a recruiter and how that payment structure worked, and then we were talking some about over here about COVID, and we said, hey, if you're once or twice removed from somebody, hey, your buddy got sick, but you saw your buddy, and then your third person is trying to find out, like, hey, can I hang out with you since you were with that person? That we were doing some of the math behind that. So you can check out those episodes. We'll link those two in the chat. If not now, then later. So I wanted to show a better thing. So let's just say this is time as we're moving forward in time. And this could be anything. It could be popularity. It could be money. And what is going on right now is, and this is going to be, let's say, helpful for life, for example, but this could be any company, right? So over time, popularity is going to start out, maybe it's going to go a little bit, but then, you know, you've got your trash can, right? And you've got that pipe. And this water's flowing, but then the trash starts building up. So then you've got this buildup. Well, at some point, there's going to be the explosion where all the trash comes out, right? But my point is...
You would hope so. It could also go the opposite way. The trash builds up and the pipe bursts.
The pipe bursts.
And then it doesn't go the direction you want.
Yes.
It actually goes backwards.
Yes, you could, yes. But yeah, the point is around here, this is this 5-year mark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So over time, you've been doing this work behind the scenes, where you're doing all this, and then it's like, oh, hey, now people start to figure out about you, and then one thing leads to another, and all that work that you're doing behind the scenes starts to pay off again, because, like, for example, yesterday I was on a podcast interview a couple weeks back, and after the podcast interview, he's like, all right, hey, send me this, send me that, and then another thing is, oh, well, now that I've been on your podcast interview, I want you to be an affiliate, which basically, real quick definition for those who aren't aware, affiliate is somebody, and another term is affiliate marketing. It's basically that person is going to get a commission from whatever sale they have. So, for example, with Kickstart Your Kitchen, if you were to sell, let's just say I'm talking about David Orozco. We had him on a couple Fridays back, and we're going to do some partnership together. And I say, hey, David, for every person that buys that course from you, you're going to get 50% of that sale. And so that's one way of us trying to help grow the company, is saying, hey, let's give them, other people, an incentive to sell this for us, because now they're going to get rewarded. Now, David's also doing it because he believes in what we're doing, and he thinks that it lines up with what he's trying to do. And that's a big thing that's important to me when it comes to affiliate marketing, because sometimes people will try and do or sell things using affiliate marketing kind of disingenuinely. And that's where, as we saw this kind of influencer movement, especially over the last few years, where you end up with this thing where there's people who are like, hey, try out this thing. And it's like, do you really like that thing? Or are you just saying that because you're getting paid to say that?
Yeah, and I think one of our, we all kind of have a bullshit detector, and it goes off. Like, we have, with advertising, because we see so much of it, I think we've gotten better and better at being tuned to things. However, big data has also gotten better and better at analyzing how we react to things and giving us things that are really catered to us. So we're in the midst of this really funky time period right now, where I think there's two things going on at once. One of them is that kind of craving authenticity, which is kind of what you're talking about with TikTok. Is like, you're supposed to not be super polished on there. You're supposed to be authentic. Yet now companies are trying to co-opt that authenticity as a style, so that they can then move product. And so this is kind of a fascinating thing to see. And it's going to keep getting weirder and weirder, right? Where their tastes are going to keep shifting to try to get away from things that corporations can like advertise to them, so that the advertisements are more recognizable. So I think, we're just kind of in an interesting time period. When we start talking about social media, though, and this kind of growth and affiliate marketing and influencers and things like that, these are all ways. The influencer is interesting because it's a way to get an authentic voice. It's almost closer to word of mouth, but it's like social media word of mouth, right? Which is an interesting way to sort of do it, to set up salespeople as word of mouth people, because we know that normal advertisements are no longer working. You can't just put something on a billboard. You can't just like run an ad in front of somebody and have them click on it. So now we have trusted sources, and these trusted sources are who we lean on to actually move product.
Yeah, trusted source, right? And and I'm using air quotes there, because trusted, depending on who you're looking at for this affiliate, knowledge, right, is up to you, the audience, to recognize, like, hey, this person is getting paid for something. And oh, by the way, with affiliate marketing, people are supposed to disclose that, although some people are more or less obvious with that. So that's also part of the problem too. And that's part of the thing about visibility on, for example, YouTube, Instagram, things like that. There are some requirements in terms of service about, hey, you need to say the word ad, you need to say paid, these types of things. So there are some rules out there, but it's not always the most obvious to the end consumer, because first off, some of them are not even aware that this thing happens. But second off, then it's like, okay, now I'm aware that it's happening, but how do I really know? And so some of that's just about getting to know the company, getting to know the creator, and getting to know, like, hey, are they going to really just tell us stuff that is good, even if they get paid for it? Or are they only going to tell us things that get us paid for it? And that's one of the things that, for example, when it comes to credit cards and credit card education, that was one area where it's kind of flooded with affiliate marketing, because the credit card companies make it very easy for you to say, hey, writer, sign up, apply for this card, and then I'll get a kickback because you signed up for that card. But what happens when certain credit cards say, no, we're not going to do that? Well, maybe those credit cards don't get mentioned on my website anymore because I'm not getting paid for it. And so as I was creating our our guide, Swipe Right, the credit card guide, which we'll include a link for in the chat, but you can find on helpfulforlife.com/resources, that credit card guide, as I was putting it together, I found all these websites, and it's like, some of them, when you read their affiliate disclosure, it's like, I don't trust them, because there's what's called the editorial decision. Like, I don't trust that editorial decision to not be affected by the money. And I saw certain sites where I was like, this credit card actually was recommended as the #1 credit card a couple weeks ago. Now I don't see it on their website at all. That seems a little sketchy to me. It's like, hey, maybe they stopped paying as much as they wanted, but why should it fall completely off? And so, just so everyone's on the same page with what Helpful for Life is about, we are going to tell you guys things that we get paid for, and we are going to say, hey, these are things we recommend. But we're also going to say, hey, this one might also be the right choice for you, even though we don't get paid for it, because at the end of the day, we want what's best for you guys, and we are not just about getting that affiliate commission, but that's not how a lot of companies are.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to affiliate commission us, please.
Yes.
God, that could be so much fun. As long as we could just make up our own commercials for your product.
Yes.
Do that.
Yes, please. If you would like for us to be an affiliate for whatever it is that you're doing, please reach out to us. You can go to contact us in the top right, helpfulforlife.com. And if you have a product, a service, a company, whatever, or if you want us to do paid advertising or something like that, please reach out. We will gladly entertain what you've got. But of course, we got to like what you're doing. We got to like what you're showing. So make sure to give us some background info on all of that as well. So when we talked about social media, we talked about the idea of influencer and affiliate marketing. We talked about the trash buildup. One of the things that we wanted to talk about. I started to talk about the way we got down the affiliate rabbit hole was just saying, okay, what some of this work that we had done in the past and now starting to see the benefits of it. So I was on this show, I was on the podcast with David, and then he said, all right, send me the stuff that, I need to put on our website, and I'm also setting them up as an affiliate. And I went to go do that yesterday, and I was like, okay, oh man, I got to do all this stuff. And then I went to go look, and I was like, hey, let me check. I think I did this before. And I went and I looked, and I had this big email all written out with all these nice formatting and highlighting and all these things. And I was like, hey, I just need to change this, change that, and then send it over. And then, now like I already have this web page I can clone. I just need to do these steps. And so it's like now I'm starting to see, hey, all those things I did, all that work, I set up those processes and things that over the last 5 years I've been doing, just a little here, a little there, which, by the way, made me go much slower overall in the long term, in the short term, because I am taking the time to capture and do those things properly, especially as I make it to where other people can leverage that work. But now it's getting to the point where I'm starting to see some of the benefit of that work. And we have another guest who's coming on sometime in the next few weeks, who's also an entrepreneur, who texted me the other day. She's like, hey, I just had somebody who I've not talked to in years. Actually, I've never met in person, but they found me through this networking thing. They went through my website that I set up. They filled out my form. They booked a calendar time with me without me ever having done anything. And then we had that phone call. I even upsold them to this next thing, and then scheduled it for sometime in the future. And it was like, man, it was just satisfying to see like all those things that all those time, each one of them took hours and hours and lots of thought to set up, to see the system start working. Yeah. So doing that work up front, building that trash pile to start building up, so that way when you spew your trash everywhere, it works out better for you, you know?
Yeah, there's other ways of doing this though too, right? There's that's one of the fun things about marketing, is if you get online, everyone's going to have their own path to success, their own way of getting there. One of the fascinating things is you can build up thousands of followers, but if they're all fake bots, then who cares? Right. This might look attractive to an advertiser that you have 200,000 or 2 million followers, but if they're all fake, then so what, right? Like you're maybe not going to actually move any product for them, and the advertiser will figure that out, that they're not getting any traffic from you, and then they'll just move on. So there's sort of multiple ways of doing it, but there's also the slow and steady approach rather than the trash pipeline approach where we're talking the hockey stick curve up. Right. There's also just the very slow and steady. Let's just gain it 10 at a time until, do that every day until all of a sudden you have this magical number. But what is kind of nice about marketing and a lot of these things that a lot of people are going for is to hit that sort of tipping point where all of a sudden it catches on and it starts growing exponentially rather than linear.
Yeah, and an analogy for that I like to think of is the snowball, right? Yeah. You got that snowball that starts rolling, but until it gets to the point where it can kill people and take out trees and ski lifts, like, is it really a useful snowball? No. So you got to wait till that snowball rolls downhill enough.
Right. It's not really doing anything.
Right.
Until it can take out some houses and cars.
Exactly. Yeah. So welcome to Helpful for Life, where we are going to spew our trash pile all over you and murder everyone with a giant snowball. Yeah. We're good at marketing. Ding! So, yes. Well, one of the things I can't help but think about as we're talking about the social media path, and do you get bots? Do you get real people? Do you go slow? Do you go fast? What do you do? It starts to think about, well, how many people do you really need, and for that to be valuable? And also, one of the things, another quote that you had written down here, I want to make sure to share was. Start with an understanding of you. If you don't understand why people are going to follow you, no one is going to hit the follow button, which is by a guy named Michael Allums.
Yeah.
And who's Michael Allums? Do you know?
Oh, I think he has a company called something like Marketing Lead Growth. I think I stumbled across that through Farnham Street, which is the Knowledge Project.
But the one of the things I wanted to point out with that was. Then that's kind of some of what Helpful for Life has been going through over these last 5 years. And one example that I wanted to point out was, hey, when you're growing a company, you're working on something, the first people that often hear about it and you talk to are family and friends. And I had some people who said, hey, I'm interested in hearing about you and keep me updated and stuff like that. And so, when I was doing my In the Cave method, I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't send anything out. And then when I came out of my cave and I was like, hey, don't you want this thing? Everyone is like, who are you? And wait, I don't have the follower count to share things, any of these type of things. And it's like, that was when I realized, oh, crap. I needed to be doing this in parallel. I needed to be keeping both of these balls up and announcing this earlier, because the thing that I'm very good at focusing on the one task, right? But if you want to do a successful launch of something, you want to do it in advance, and you want to announce it, and you want to tell people it's coming, and then 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 you say, oh, it came, or it's coming today, and then you said, oh, it came, and then you tell people that it came, and then
there's a lot of coming.
Yes, there is. And then so that was the part I wasn't good at.
No, it's the sort of slow seduction and tease part. Right?
Yes,
it is like there's some foreplay that has to go.
The foreplay,
on.
Yes, I was not doing any foreplay, so
we need to have a relationship.
But the good news is as I was doing that lack of foreplay, I was realizing like, okay, well, I could share this, I could tell some people about it, but do they really have a good thing to do once they get there? And the short answer was they didn't at that point, because I didn't have content for people to consume. I'm like, hey, you can go to my website to learn a little bit more, but realistically, like, I don't have that much value I can add to you outside of that yet. And so that was part of like, okay, now I've built a course, now I've built a credit card guide, now I have useful calculators, now we have freaking 80 hours of content from our live show. Like, now there's a whole bunch of value we can provide to you. And oh, by the way, when you get plugged in, you can just contact us and tell us what's going on with you, ask a question or whatever, and we will address it. Like, so now the value is there. And so now it's about, okay, you did that work to get some of the systems in place to where things can be successful. And now it's about executing and moving forward. So that was us figuring out us, so we can get people, when they press the follow button, they have somewhere to go, they have something to do, they can start to get value from the brand. But the one thing I wanted to get back to was, so we figured out now how to provide the value. Now the question is, how many people, how much do I need to be successful? And that was another thing that was a big shift as I got into the online content world, was realizing like, look, you don't need to have millions and millions of people or hundreds of thousands of followers to be a successful business and to create some change in the world. Are you familiar with that concept?
Yeah, the guy named Kevin Kelly came up with this concept of 1,000 true fans. And that idea is that if you only get 1 out of 1 million people to like what you're doing, but there's 7 million people on the planet, you end up with 7 billion, sorry.
Yeah.
You end up with all these followers, right? You end up with tons of people that are interested. So he talks about getting a true connection with really just a few people, having 1,000 super fans. You can still have a lot of fans and a whole lot of acquaintances, but if you can just have 1,000 super fans, and those 1,000 super fans are willing to pay you like X amount per year because they just really believe in what you're doing, then that can fund what you're doing. Like, if 1,000 people are giving you $100 every year, $100,000. That's a really nice salary, to sort of start off with. And then you start going, well, you might also at that point have 10,000 fans.
Right.
And with 10,000 fans, and each of them are giving you, like, say, $5, what does that look like, right? And so you can end up reaching a pretty nice living, a very nice living. But a lot of it for him is about true connection and staying niche and finding those people who really love what you're doing, who are willing to support you. And in that, these are fans that you would keep for tens of years. And the problem today is people are very fickle. They jump from podcast to podcast, show to show. How do you actually keep people that are true fans, and you have to actually have a true connection with them?
Yeah. So one thing I want to make sure to point out about that is there's a book called Superfans by Pat Flynn. And real quick, who Pat Flynn is he started a company a while back called Smart Passive Income, and is a cool. Excuse me. Wow, must have been.
It backed up.
Yeah,
Trash in the throat.
That trash pipe. Oh, that's coming out. So yes. Anyways, so Pat Flynn. So he started this company called Smart Passive Income, and this started, I believe, back near 2008, 2009, that recession type of time. And he got laid off. He was an architect, and he was actually good at his job, but for business reasons, they had to lay him off. And then he was like, well, what am I going to do now? Like, I did all these things. I did this school, and now I don't know, and I need to support my family, all that kind of stuff. And so one thing led to another, and now he created this company called Smart Passive Income. And what it is it's about working hard now so you can reap the benefits later. So kind of like we were talking about here, like doing in this work on the back end to then be able to reap that benefit for time going forward. And so to use another great example by a wise man named Reed Garcia, Kickstart Your Kitchen. Wow, what a great example. So we did all that work developing and creating that course. And now the goal is we're going to sell that course for years, if not decades, because we did the work. And yeah, we're going to improve it over time. But that base work, that base knowledge, that's now been done. That's now been captured. And the reason it's called passive is because now I don't need to trade hours for money. I have this product that we're setting up these systems, we're setting up this marketing to where it will start to sell. And yes, we are doing some work to set up all that marketing, things like that. But once we get things set up, we get some things automated, we get some paid advertising going, then that'll just continue to go and go and go. And as we then create another thing and another thing and another thing, well, next thing you know, you have multiple sources of income, which is another pro tip for people at home is diversify your income, get multiple sources of income. And then even if they're small trash streams, if you combine them together, if I've got 10 small things that are giving me a little bit of money every month, well, that starts to become a little more significant.
Yeah, I mean, if you had 10 things that were bringing you $50 every month, all of a sudden that's some money. And then if that can go up to $100 every month, all of a sudden that's some real money. You know, it starts changing the way that these things work. And yeah, it's kind of a fascinating thing to think about, diversifying all this, getting the systems in place, not having to trade hours for your money. Like that's one of the interesting things about jobs. We might be in a knowledge mindset and being able to set up these systems as knowledge workers, then trading hours for money maybe isn't such a good model. And that's just kind of one way to think about it. People do everything differently, but if you get paid hourly, well, then when you hit 60, 65 and your body's aching, you might not want to be continuing to spend that amount of time or energy. Then again, you might if it's your hobby and you're loving it. So it's just a matter of sort of figuring out how that's going to work for you.
For sure. And, you know, we'll talk more about passive income and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure, another day. But the reason I brought it up was because his company and his book now that he's created is called Superfans. The company is called Smart Passive Income, so you guys can find that out, smartpassiveincome.com, I believe. And you can also find his book, which we've just now shared in the chat. And guess what? It's an affiliate link. So if you guys go to buy that book through that link, we will get a percentage of that sale at no additional cost to you, which is the nice thing is you can go and click that link. And the cool thing about Amazon is if you click an affiliate link, hopefully one for helpful for life, anything you buy in that purchase and the next purchase you make, it all goes to that. So if you go to buy that book and then you go and say, hey, you know what? I think now is the right time for us to buy that flamethrower, that television, that car, you know, all of these really high ticket dollar items. If you guys buy that after clicking on our link, we'll get a percentage of those sales too.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to buy a yacht, you know, and
off Amazon.
Yeah, off Amazon. And maybe a parachute for your yacht to fit in the plane that you're going to drop it from.
And then a boat lift to keep the yacht up.
Yes.
You should probably get a backup one just in case.
You know, and maybe, you know, is there a way that you can do wait staff services too? Because you're going to have to be served margaritas.
If not, Amazon needs to get on that.
They do.
Sure.
They really do. They're missing
can you
this
prime
niche,
deliver
right?
me a waiter?
Yeah, I'm going to need somebody to serve me a margarita stat.
Nice. So yes, the reason I bring up Superfans, the book, because that is kind of what we're talking about. This 1,000 true fans. is getting those people who believe in you and your company so much that they become actually an asset for your company, because they're the ones going out there and they're doing some quote unquote free boots on the ground marketing for you, because they're saying, hey, for example, with Pat Flynn, people are going on shows and they're talking about him, even though I'm not being paid by him. And but I'm now here saying, because I'm one of his super fans, right? So I'm telling more people about him. I'm saying, hey, he's a really good thing. Go buy his book, go support him, because I'm one of his super fans. And so that's what we're trying to do here at this company, is we want to make super fans out of you guys. And the beauty of us being about Helpful for Life is our goal is to be valuable from you from basically 13 years old till you die. And that may be a little dark, but everyone's going to die, which, news alert, in case you didn't know, for now, at least.
This just keeps getting darker.
Yeah. So when you're in our trash pile and you're trying to decide when you're going to die,
you're trying to climb out.
Come to Helpful for Life. No, but the thing is we're all about helping you guys throughout all of the stages of your life. And so we want you to be our super fan. We want you to get engaged with us. We want to help you as you're figuring out becoming an adult and learning things like that. But also then we want to help you later on in life. Hey, you start to deal with aging parents. You start to deal with death. Oh, you need to buy a house. You're looking to retire. Like, these are all things that we can help you guys with. So that's why for us, it's very important for us to focus more on building super fans than getting the millions and millions and millions of fans, is because we will look at you guys as people and not numbers, and we want to help you as individuals. And, if we do it well and you guys find it valuable, then maybe one day we will have those hundreds of thousands or millions of views or whatever that might be. But it's important to us to focus on the people and not the masses, if that makes sense. So the last thing that we are going to talk about real quickly before wrapping up was another way of trying to generate some marketing, right? And that is talking to people who do it all the time and do it well. And, oh, by the way, maybe having some exchange of money to say, hey, look, I recognize that it's one thing to make a beautiful piece of something. Thanks, Mom, for making me. And it's another thing to market and sell that thing, right? Yeah. And let me go to someone who does that repeatedly, right? They market and they sell. And, oh, by the way, maybe they have results. So what are your thoughts on that process?
I was never really a fan of that early on, but I realized that's what
Did you feel like you were selling out?
I did. Like, the work should sell itself, man. Was
that a good time living in your van?
Down by the river? Yeah. Oh, no, it was, you want to think that things that you create and produce will have their own merit and that value will attract people to them. That might be true still, and I think it probably is true that you can provide a lot of value and people will be attracted to it. But sometimes getting your attractiveness in front of the right people at the right time is difficult to do. Marketing agencies, really, that's what they're best at, somehow showing your best side to the right people at the right time, in the right way, in the right order. When they really start getting down to marketing, they can track people through getting them interested and then moving them step by step into your belief system, into your funnel, into whatever your product is. And so marketing agencies specialize in this. And if you want to actually trade money for this, you can, and there's great ones out there. I didn't necessarily believe in them until I talked to somebody who runs a clothing store, and they just talked about the way that their sales went through the roof after they started using a marketing agency. And I was just like, but how much does it cost? And it was very expensive. I mean, like, we're talking like a small car every month to get this to happen.
Goodness.
But it also increased their sales like 4 or 5-fold, right? So they more than made up for themselves in sales. But the thing is, you have to have the money to get the marketing team to get the So there was this kind of it's a circular
chicken
system.
Before the egg.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Right.
And yet, if you can track everything, because that's the other important part, is actually tracking. And you have to have some metrics. You have to know what you're doing. You have to position yourself well and all these things. Otherwise, you can dump a lot of money on a marketing agency and go nowhere.
Right. And, I can't help but think of Alexandra when you're talking about this, because Alexandra, who's one of our data analytics experts here at Helpful for Life, we'll link her playlist in the chat for all of her previous appearances. But one of the things she talks about all the time is, hey, you need to know where you're going. You need to know what you're trying to do. You can't just have this data. That data, it needs to support whatever it is you're trying to do. And so that's one of the cool things about living in today's day and age is with digital marketing and in this world, you can know who's clicking on things. You can know when that visitor goes somewhere. You can know, oh, they went all the way up to that checkout page, but they never actually clicked the button. And then you can use that information to target those people and to retarget those people. And that's one of the things that is interesting and very valuable to us as small business owners, and also to people who run big businesses. But it also gets a little bit hairy, and sometimes some people start to question the privacy angle of things, which we're not going to talk about in depth today because that's a whole topic in and of itself. But this whole concept of, hey, in order for us as a business to be able to better get our products and services to those who arguably need it or could benefit from it, there's some amount of tracking and that could be done on these people. So I know, hey, can you just show this to only single moms, because this is something about dealing with single moms. Like, that is a nice, powerful thing to be able to do as a business. As I'm saying, not only do I want to target a specific group, but I also don't have the biggest pool of money. So this allows me to say, I just want to target that smaller subset. Can I put some money towards that? And being able to do that's a very valuable tool as a business. But then, as I was implying, then it starts to get into some of the privacy aspect, which, to bring up Apple again, that's one of the things they say. They say they're about privacy, right? And that's one of their external markers. But there's a lot of questions like, how much do you really does privacy mean to you? Because, for example, one of the things they did within the last 6 months, I believe, at least within this last year, was they ticked a setting that said, hey, you can ask apps not to track you across apps, because they used to be able to do that. And that was one of those things like, oh, well, thank you for letting us know, because a lot of people did not realize that was happening. But also, okay, you stop them from tracking people across apps, but you can still track people across apps, and you can still do stuff with that data. So it's like, how much do you really care about privacy? And so you start to get into some of these topics and questions.
It's even worse when you see that they will hand your information over to the government if the government asks for it.
Right, which is another part of it,
and you're just like, oh, anyway, whole different topic.
Right.
But when we're talking about marketing and social media and things like that, there's a lot of ways to get in front of people out there, and it's kind of interesting how you do it. Of course, we want to do it in a responsible way, and we want to be authentic about things, and we want to be truthful about things. And yet at the same point, you do want to actually somehow make money or, create some revenue around what you're doing. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult thing right now because the market is really saturated. There are so many channels and so many things going on, and people are so annoyed with getting advertised too, that sometimes it makes me question the whole social media model of advertising, because that's where almost all the advertising seems to be going. And I just keep thinking there's got to be another way.
Okay. Yeah, there does have to be another way, which is for you guys, just send us your money. Here's my Bitcoin address, 55433CX42708912.
Yeah, but we can only spend that Bitcoin on the dark web, so...
Yes.
It's not going to be super helpful.
We could buy a lot of trash on the dark web.
Couldn't we?
I think we could.
To just get it imported from China after we send it over there?
Yeah. Okay, so I think it's time for us to wrap up and recap some of these things. So walk us through some of the things that we covered with the marketing today. We started out talking a little bit about Meta and then went from there.
Yeah, so discussed Meta and just the idea of backing up and taking a look. We discussed a lot of things about the difference in the creating the product and in actually marketing the product, how that's done or not done, when you should do it, when you shouldn't. We talked about building up a pipeline, essentially, of sort of pressure, for the social media to actually turn a corner so that you can actually progress. And that's kind of it's just sort of an interesting idea to sort of like build and tease and then finally have that release. So we talked a little bit about that as far as marketing goes. We also talked about who we're going for, and we're not going for a bazillion followers that are random bots or people. We actually want true, authentic connection. And so that means 1,000 followers that are really, into us, super fans. And so we're interested in having super fans that we can have a community with, not just randos. So that's another side of it. There's also the idea that if you're really bogged down and you really need to sort of find something tactical, maybe not overall strategic, but you can hire a marketing agency to actually bring in tactical results, and they're results-driven kind of ways to get marketing to do what you need.
Yeah, and that was a nice recap. Thank you very much. And of course, we talked about a lot more than that. And of course, we had some tangents and talked a little bit about features versus benefits. We talked a little bit about a couple of really cool quotes, talked about the going in the cave method and the downsides of that. But I think it is now time for a challenge for today. And so for today, I kind of have a two-tiered challenge for people. One is to help you guys, and the other one is to help us. Because if we're going to be selfish, it's going to be on our meta episodes. Dang it. But to help you guys, what are you doing for your personal marketing? And maybe, if you have a company that you're involved in and marketing something that you think about, you could apply it through that lens. But I encourage you to think about it for you personally. And one easy thing you can do is to create a personal website. And we're not sponsored by any of the website creators. Otherwise, I'd say, hey, go do it right now. But the reality is you can go get on anything like Squarespace or Wix or WordPress or any one of these website editors. If you're like, Reed, I'm not technical, I can't figure any of that stuff out. The reality is anybody can make a website today. They've made it so easy. It's been around now for this whole concept of making a personal website 25 plus years now. So the builders have gotten to be what's called a what you see is what you get editor. And you could even Google that term if you want to, say best what you can see, what you get editor, and you can use the acronym for that. So like, well, why would I do a personal website? Well, first off, we'll add in the chat a link to writerrichards.com. And that is an example of a personal website. And it's especially valuable if it's something where you are creating something outside of yourself that you can point to over time. Because then it's like, hey, now I have a spot. Like, yes, it's one thing to have a resume, but do you want to send your resume to just some random friend or person? Like, hey, here's the things I did. And one nice thing about having a personal website is you can tell people who you are. You can tell people what you're about. And that is you intentionally putting that out there into the world. Because guess what? Right now, if you Google yourself, you're going to find a whole bunch of stuff about you that is not from you, right? And maybe that's grabbed from social media. Maybe there's things that you weren't even aware of. Maybe you've been mentioned in articles or whatnot. So by having a personal website and by publishing things yourself on the web, you get to create what your top 10 results look like on Google. And so even if this is like, Reed, this isn't something I care about, I don't think that would be valuable to me. Well, that's like we're talking about here. Sometimes things take a while to build up. And that's one of the nice things about just taking this small step and doing this today is you can create your website. It can just be a most basic of landing pages with a contact form to get in touch with you and maybe like a little bit of info about you. But then over time, that gains authority because it's been around for a while, and there's something called SEO, search engine optimization, that comes into play. And by having that address for a while, that gives you more authority. And then as you add more and more to it, and you get to show people what it is you want to show them, that can be very valuable. So that's one part of the challenge, is making a personal website. And the other tier of the challenge is, do you want to be an affiliate? Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard us mention earlier, but it's very possible for you guys to be an affiliate for Helpful for Life. And if you want to sell our products and you want to get a little bit of benefit from that, then contact us. Let us know, and we will work through that process. You can go to our website, helpfulforlife.com, and hit the Contact Us button in the top right. And I will point out that, we don't want everyone to just be like, hey, we all are going to be affiliates. We're all going to do this. Like, no, like this is going to be for people who are like, hey, I want to help you guys out. And also, by the way, I want to make a little bit of money as I'm telling people about what you're about because I believe in it. Not because I'm going to go buy a bunch of ads and spam this all over the place. Like, that's not what we're about. Like, we were about that personal connection. And yes, if you have a large following and you can share things with them, that's great. But we want to make sure that you believe in the thing that you're sharing. So contact us for that. So the two-tier challenge is, one, consider what your personal marketing is. Maybe you want to make a personal website, or maybe it's just about rebranding something that you've already got. And then the other one is to consider becoming an affiliate for Helpful for Life. Any last thoughts today, Ryder?
No, the marketing is everywhere now. So, pay attention to it, see through it. But once again, if you got any feedback for us, please throw it our way. It always helps.
Yes. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. And we will see. Oh, you know what? I got to make sure to mention our cohort. Our cohort for Kickstart Your Kitchen, which we'll be talking more about the rest of this week. But in case you're here listening to it, make sure you check out KYK-cohort on our website, helpfulforlife.com. KYK-cohort, COHORT. There's no website there right now, but there will be shortly. And this week we'll be announcing the launch of some cohorts around Kickstart Your Kitchen. And for those of you like, what does that mean? It's basically a fancy way of saying, hey, we're going to help people go through Kickstart Your Kitchen as a group, so you can learn from each other and you can better leverage the course and get to know things more and receive that transformation that we really want you guys to have. So with that, we will say sayonara or something like that. And then we'll see you guys later.
See you later.
Bye now.